Hello, I'm Lee Epperson. I'm your Dojo TV instructor for self-defense, and welcome to my tape on joint locking. Today's tape, we're going to cover 1 through 15 out of a 60-step lock. Now, I'm an 8th degree black belt in the M.A.S.T.E.R system. M.A.S.T.E.R stands for mixing all styles together, everything realistic. We're going to cover joint locks from Chin-Na, from Aikijutsu, from Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, we're going to combine them all together into a series of locking. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, I'm Lee Epperson, and I'd like to welcome you to our tape on joint locking. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, let's get started with our joint locks. With Mr. Tony's help, we're going to start the drill with the handshake. We're going to square off with our partner. Now, the attacker is going to start the drill. What they're going to do is they're going to step back with the left leg, and they're going to cock back the left fist. He's ready to strike. So he has to do that before I react with lock number 1. So come on back in again. Now, very important, as the attacker steps back with the left, you step forward with the left. And what I want you to do is I want you to place your knee along the side or towards the back of your opponent's knee. See how I'm giving his knee to bend? This is going to cancel him from kicking. Can you kick from there? See, he cannot kick from there. If I'm not buckling, let me see, side kick, yeah, twist kick, yes, look at that. You see, many kicks he can do from there. So it's very important to get that knee behind your partner's knee. Okay, square off again. So that's going to take care of the kicking. Now, as far as the attacking punch, we're going to have to take care of that. I'm going to show you how we lock him up. When he steps back with the left, we step in with the left. Now, simultaneously, we're going to reinforce that handshake with our left hand. So all I'm doing is overlapping the right. So I'm squeezing, putting pressure on all the hands. All the hands, cut that. I want to say all the joints. Okay, can we take it right from there? Okay, now that cancels your opponent's ability to kick. Now let's take care of that punching arm. As he steps back with the left, we step in with the left, and we're going to reinforce that handshake. So I'm taking my left hand and I'm wrapping over top of the right. I'm going to squeeze all the bones in the hand together. At this point, I'm going to place my upper arm, the bone of my upper arm, right underneath my partner's elbow. You see how I'm starting to lift him up? I'm putting pressure on his arm. We want to get the arm straight. We're going to have 4 locks on the very first joint lock. The shoulder's going to be locked, the elbow's locked, the wrist is going to be locked, and we're going to turn the fingers in towards his belt level so that we lock the fingers. So we have 4 locks. We've got the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers. All together with lock number 1. Now, how I get the shoulder locked, I want to treat this arm like it's a post. And I'm going to push that post all the way up. See how I'm trying to get his shoulder to touch his ear? That way we're locking the shoulder. I'm going to lock his elbow by placing my arm underneath the elbow and applying pressure up. So his body weight is pulling him to the ground. My arm is lifting at the elbow. So it's all his body weight. All 215 pounds is the pressure he feels right at his elbow. Now the wrist is going to be locked because I'm taking the elbow. You see that? You see the wrist here? I said elbow. Let me do that again. Let's take it right from here. Okay, now the wrist is going to be locked. You see this angle, 90-degree angle in there? If we take away that angle, the wrist is not locked. So we want to keep that at 90 degrees. That's going to lock the wrist. He's going to feel very tight pressure on the wrist right in this area there. I'm taking the fingers. I'm going to bend the fingers back. You see? So now we have the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers. All 4 locked. We keep our knee behind their knee so that they cannot kick. Now he should be at a distance here where it's safe. He cannot punch. Let me see you reach out the fist. There you go. See? You cannot reach. It's at least 6 inches away. Okay? Let's look at that again. Now all of this is done simultaneously. This is joint lock number 1. When he steps back, we step in. We reinforce the handshake. We put our elbow underneath of his elbow. Okay? So watch. As he steps back, right there. That's a joint lock number 1. He cannot kick. He cannot punch. Now what's causing him to stay and remain locked up is the pressure he feels underneath of his elbow. So if he alleviates that pressure, he does not feel the lock. So what he's going to do in retaliation, he's going to push down onto my elbow. That's going to release the lock. Once he does that, he's free to punch. He's still not free to kick because we're keeping him checked off downstairs, but as far as the upstairs go, he's free to punch. Okay, let's watch. He steps back, so we step in. There's the lock number 1. Now if he pushes down the elbow, you see? I lost the lock. I lost it all together. I'm going to borrow that to lead me into lock number 2, okay? He steps back, so we step in, make sure everything's locked up. When he pushes down, we're going to swing his arm out to the side, and if I get my partner to turn a little bit, I'm using his arm as like a mini doorway. I will walk under the doorway. You see? You can hear that crack in the wrist. Now he's locked up. This is lock number 2. If you can look down at the feet, you see? If you get your partner up onto the balls of their feet, they cannot kick. Let me see kick. Very hard. But if I loosen up just a little bit where he puts it down, yes, now he kicks. So look at that, you see? We want to get him up on the toes so he cannot kick. Okay, let's go back again. Now you notice I have not released the handshake. Okay? Actually, locks 1 through 6, you will keep the handshake. Starting with lock number 7, then we'll let go. Okay, but we'll get there soon enough. He steps back. We step in, lock him up for number 1. He pushes down our elbow. See? Now we lost lock number 1. We flow to lock number 2. We go through the doorway and lock him up here. Now if I can get you to hold still right there. We still have our hand reinforced. We're going to turn this, we're going to screw this clockwise up towards the ceiling. I want to get his elbow higher than his shoulder, and I want to keep his wrist straight. Some instructors teach this lock with the bent wrist, and we actually have that in the joint locking series, okay? But for lock number 2, I want you to keep this straight. Treat the arm like a post, and apply pressure. You're spiraling pressure upwards to get him to raise up onto the bottom ball so that he cannot strike, he cannot kick at this point. Now, what I'm going to do is unwind and come back to where we started. Now, my partner, he's had that punch ready for lock number 1 and lock number 2. For lock number 3, that punch is coming into play. As he fires the punch, we're going to use the bone, the forearm, we're going to shoot that up and we're going to block his punch. Now, do not, let's do this slow, I'm going to show you, do not let go of the handshake to try to block that punch. At this point, he's free to kick. We don't like that, okay? So when he punches, keep a hold of it. See how I keep the handshake? And then use your right forearm to deflect that punch. Now, on lock number 2, the doorway was our partner's arm. For lock number 3, our arm is the doorway. So we'll walk through that doorway. You see? Here's lock number 3. I have the bent arm pulled tightly across my shoulder. If I stand up, he has to go up. If I come down, there's no pressure. So you got to get up as tall as you can. If you look down at his feet, you can see you want him up on the bottom ball of the feet so you do not get kicked. Okay? So watch again. Let's take it from this side. We square off. He's going to step back and threaten to punch. So we step in, we lock him up for number 1. He pushes down our elbow. We swing his arm out to the side. You see the doorway? I walk through the doorway and apply pressure to get him up on the toes. Now I will unwind and come back to where I started, but there's the punch coming in. So I deflect it with my forearm. I walk underneath, turn, and pull this right across my shoulder. You see? So it's like I'm carrying him on my back right from here. I can lead him anywhere I want him to go. Now for lock number 4, I'm going to come through halfway. I'm going to let go with the left hand, but the right hand is still keeping the handshake. I'm going to palm heel strike my partner's face. I'm going to turn his eyes away from the lock that's about to happen. So we palm heel strike. I'm going to hold him still, turn him around. You see how I straighten out the arm? Palm heel strike, the arm is straight. I will wrap over and under, and I will key lock this onto my own wrist. See how my 5 fingers lock over top the forearm? Now I'll apply pressure. He's tapping because he feels the pain. Also, if you look down at the feet, put the pressure on the shoulder, posting up his arm, so I can get him up on the bottom ball of his feet. This is lock number 4. Okay, let's look at it again. From the handshake, we strike to the face. So you cannot see the lock that's about to happen. This goes over and under and locks on tightly to our wrist. Now once again, we have all 4 locks. The shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers. We have that same quadruple lock from number 1. Okay, and this is move number 4. So let's take it from the top. He steps back, we step in. There's 1. He pushes down. There's 2. We come back, here comes the punch. We deflect with the forearm. Walk under the door, and there's 3. Come around halfway. Strike the palm heel with the left. Snake over and under. Key lock this on. There's lock number 4. Now when I release this lock, I'm going to keep the handshake. If you can see my hands, I'm going to let go with the left, and as I pull out, I'm going to strike the elbow to my partner's face. I will continue that motion, come underneath the arm, and then behind my partner's head. This is the shape of the crane. We're craning behind his head. At this point, I will push down on the arm. Yes, and applying pressure from there. This is lock number 5. You see? I have once again the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers, all 4 locked in nice and tight. If I push his fingers down towards his belt, yes, he's starting to feel the pain, okay? Now, for number 6, I will release the crane from the back of my partner's neck, step underneath, throw this arm over top of my shoulder. Now, there's 2 ways you can do it. I'm going to show you my way. This is the way it's commonly taught. You're in your horse stance. You reinforce the grip. You pull this down, you clamp your elbows to the side, and if you apply pressure up, yes, he's going to feel that. But what I do not like about this one is he can slide off to the side. Now he can punch. You see that? So let me get him back up there. So here's how I want you to do it. I want you to take the left arm and wrap it over top. And if you're wearing something, get a hold of it. If not, just get a hold of your shoulder. But since I have the uniform on, I'm going to get a nice tight grip. You see? Now if he tries to walk off the side, go ahead. He can't do it. He's stuck. This is lock number 6. I want to show you something very interesting. Let me get my partner in that position. All the way up on the toes. The shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers. All 4 locked. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to step in. I'm going to show you lock number 1. Okay, you see that? Now I'm going to step in and show you lock number 4. Palm strike. See? Now lock number 5. Here's the crane behind the head. Okay? Now number 6. Right there. So if you notice, for lock number 1, 4, 5, and 6, your partner is in the same position. All we have to do is contort our body in various ways to get in there and establish the same quadruple lock. The shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers, all locked. 1, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, let's pick it up at the 6. Now our partner from here, they can reach in with the left, you see, and he's going to start to fish hook. He's going to stick that finger in my eye. It's very uncomfortable. I do not like that. I'm sure you won't either. So what we're going to do is we're going to flow from the 6 into the 7. We're going to release the hold. We're going to slide our hand in between our partner's arm and our chest. I'm going to place the knife edge of my hand right against his wrist. I'm going to step out away from that fish hook, and I'm going to start to apply outside wrist lock. At this point, can you see the hand? My left hand has already started the lock. I have my left thumb in between his punchy knuckles. My 4 fingers are on the inside of the wrist. I'm starting to apply that pressure. But the hand is still inside for the handshake. Now remember I said we're going to keep that handshake all the way up to 7. Well, now it's time for 7. See how the thumbs here are X cross? I'm going to leave my thumb and pull the handshake out. Now reinforce number 7. See how they form an X right there? Some people call this a butterfly wrist lock. Can you see why? Okay, right there. Okay, let's look at it again. This is the 6. I see that fish hook coming, so I slip the left arm inside, step away. Start the wrist lock. Rotate the right around. There's the number 7. Now we have an option here. Could we use his fingers to poke him in the eye? We sure could. Okay, so that's an option you might like to use. Now this is lock number 7. Now for lock number 8, we're going to keep the left hand in position. We're going to release the right hand, the original handshake hand. I'm going to start the wrist lock a little bit further. Take the right arm, come up underneath the elbow, and I'm going to do the shape of the crane on top of my partner's wrist. You see that? The shape of the crane. It's the same crane that we used for the number 5. Where we crane behind the neck of our partner. Now, we're craning at the wrist. And I'm going to treat his arm, you see, like it's a lever. I'm going to pull that down. When I get his wrist lower than his elbow, you see, it's a lot of pain. It's very hard for him to keep his balance. Okay, see how I took this shoulder away from the fight? It's a lot of pain, very painful hold. Okay, let's look at it again. Here's the 6. So we want to get away from that fish hook, you see? I slip this inside, step away, start the wrist lock. Leave the thumbs X-cross, circle the fingers around. There we go. I'm going to dip him down. This is lock number 7. For number 8, release the right hand, put a little bit more pressure onto the wrist, go under the arm, and crane right over top your opponent's wrist. This is lock number 8. Now, the only strike that he really truly has is a strike with his left arm to the right side of my head. This could be a hook punch, this could be a looping back knuckle. What we're going to use to keep the flow going is a ridge hand strike. You remember ridge hand strike, you tuck the thumb, you're going to touch the small joint on the pinky, and we're using the meat of the hand there. The ridge hand is the exact opposite side of the knife hand, curved like a butter knife. Okay, so we have the knife hand, and on this side we have the ridge hand, which is very important that you tuck your thumb. You do not want to strike with the thumb. Get the thumb out of the way and use the meaty portion of the hand. That's what he's going to try to strike with, either to the right temple or the right side of the neck. Okay, let's do it again from the 6. Here's the 6. We step out into the 7. Right hand comes off, cranes underneath, and there's the 8. Now we have the left hand free. We're going to need this hand to defend against that strike that's coming in. You see, I want you to do a palm heel block and check him right at the forearm, and that's going to keep that ridge hand away from the side of your head. Now we're going to let go of the 8, snake the right arm over top of his arm, catching him right where the elbow meets the tricep. We're going to pull this in, applying pressure. I have his hand trapped in between my ear and my shoulder. I'm shrugging the shoulders to keep that pinned in place. I'm going to place the bone of my forearm right where the elbow meets the tricep. Reinforce this with my left hand. Apply pressure down. Okay, try to stand up. Cannot do it. If you put the pressure on the shoulder, someone that's very powerful can stand. See, good, one more time, back down. I'm going to try with all my might to hold him down. I can do it, okay? But if I catch him where the elbow meets the tricep, now stand up. Very painful, cannot do it. But make sure you keep this hand up here, pinned in between the ear and the shoulders. This is lock number 9. Now for number 10. I want to show you number 10 before we actually get to it. Number 10 is the inside wrist lock. Now if you remember number 7 was the outside wrist lock. Number 10 is the inside. You see that? Here was the 7. The 8 came up underneath of there. Now here's the 10. But now I have to show you how to get to the 10 from the number 9. Do not guess. Do not let go of the 9 and try to jump back and see, it's not going to be there. You're not going to get the 10 that way. But if you place one hand on each side of the arm and slide back, you see, now you can get the number 10. You're tracking down your partner's arm. This way we never lose contact with them, and we're guaranteed to get the number 10. Okay? So here's the 9. You see I apply pressure? Very painful. One hand on each side and slide back to the wrist. Here's the number 10. Let me get him to turn a little bit. You see the thumbs? I want to put pressure on his punchy knuckle. My 8 fingers are reinforced, supporting his wrist. I want to get that angle in there, and I'm going to try to touch his fingers to his forearm. It's not going to go that far. When he starts to feel that pressure, he's going to tap. You see, he's starting to feel the pain. That's lock number 10. Now, realistically, the number 10 should take your partner all the way down to the mat. Okay, come on back up. But to keep the flow going, we're not going to take the partner down. Okay, let's look at it again. Here's the 9. Hands on each side. We slide back. There's the 10. Very good. Okay, come on up. Okay, now let's take it from the top. We start off with the handshake. He steps back to punch. Lock number 1. Pushes down. Lock number 2. We come around. Here comes a punch. Deflect the punch. Go through the doorway. Lock number 3. Come around halfway. Palm heel strike. See? To your partner's face. Lock him up. Number 4. Release the lock elbow to the face. Put the crane behind the neck. Lock number 5. Slip underneath. Reinforce this lock. Get him up is number 6. There's the fish hook. We got to get out of the way of the fish hook. There's number 7. Underneath. Now we're going to crane onto the wrist. Get his wrist lower than the elbow. Lock number 8. As he goes to strike, we block the strike. We forget about the 8. We snake over top for the number 9. One hand on each side. We slide back. There's the number 10. Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's pick it up at lock 10. Now remember when I told you lock number 10 is designed to flatten out your opponent. So we put some pressure, we take him down to the mat. He's feeling the pressure. If I put pressure down, yes, pressure on the shoulder, and he's tapping. Now, lock number 11 is designed, for whatever reason you want to bring this partner up, maybe to use him as a shield in maybe a barroom type of situation. So lock 11 is designed to get him off his belly and back to standing up. Okay, now let's get my partner to turn a little bit for me. Okay, if I can get a close-up of the hand here. You're going to take the right thumb. You're going to snake that in and let it slide right in between the index and the middle finger. You're going to take your forefingers and clamp onto the meat of your opponent's thumb. And we're going to squeeze the index and the thumb together. We want to make sure it's very tight. We have them in there. They're not going to rotate. At this point, we're going to take the left hand. We're going to bend his elbow. And we're going to take this nice little package that we've created. And we're going to push it underneath. See? That's an extreme amount of pressure. Makes him want to jump right up to the feet. Now watch. At this point, notice his hand still in full control, can reach my face. But if we apply a torquing pressure, the only thing that hand's going to be doing is tapping, saying, please don't hurt me anymore. Okay, so let's take him back down again. Right here, halfway. When you work the drill for number 10, stop your opponent when his body is parallel with the floor. Don't keep dropping him down to the floor each time. Okay, so let's watch the hand. Let's get a close-up of the hand again. From the number 10 lock, I'm slipping my thumb. See that? Right in between the index and the middle finger, letting my forefingers clamp onto the thumb joint. Right there. The left hand is going to bend the elbow. I'm pushing this package under his arm. At the same time, I'm going to push his elbow under my arm. You see? Now I want to get the wrist bent. I can take this hand, the palm of his hand, and pull pressure towards his forearm. See, it doesn't want to touch. It wants to stay locked right there. But at the same time, I'm going to twist outward, put some torquing pressure. So I'm trying to turn the palm heel of my partner towards the camera right there. See, it's not going to go that far. If it did, you would have broken your partner's wrist. This is lock number 11. Push this up nice and high if you can see the feet. Remember, we want him up on the toes so he cannot kick. Can you kick from there? Cannot do it. So the number 11, you can walk your partner out the door without having to worry about being hit. Now, let's say I want to make a transition to the other side. What I'm going to do is take my left hand, place it right on his elbow, and I'm going to rotate this behind his back in what's called a hammer lock. Now, if we turn Mr. Tony to the side here, this is hammer lock. You want the L shape in the elbow. The hand is behind your partner's back. Now, a traditional hammer lock, you try to take the wrist and you try to bring it up and touch the back of your partner's head. Mr. Tony's won't go that far. But I personally have seen students of mine take this hand and place it on top of their head. They're that flexible in the shoulder joint. The number 12 is designed, even if your partner is that flexible, it's designed to inflict pain. Okay, I'm going to show you what I mean. Let's come back here to the 10. We take the 10. We shoot him up for number 11. I'm going to put my hand on the elbow and rotate this behind the back. Okay, let me get him to turn just a little bit there. Okay, I want to stop when his forearm is parallel right here, even with his belt. Now what I'm going to do is apply pressure. I'm going to push these two together. Okay, I'm taking the elbow and I'm pushing it towards the palm of his hand. I'm taking the palm of his hand and I'm pushing it towards the elbow. So I'm compressing. I'm trying to push these two together. Now if you notice, when I do that, whoa, it's a lot of pain, okay? Starting to bring him back up. This is how I want you to do the hammer lock for move number 12. Okay, so let's look at it again. There's 10, 11, rotate this behind, put the pressure together. That is 12. I can also move him while he's feeling that pain. Now, remember we said we wanted to go to this arm? We're going to attack this arm with the 13. Let's have this arm hang down. When he feels the pressure of this arm, watch that arm. You see? You see that reaction? This arm pulls up. We're going to borrow that. And we're going to get him locked up in what's called a goose head lock. Okay? See how the arm and the wrist are bent? Looks like a goose head. Okay? So from our hammer lock, we're going to release the hand, but we're still going to keep the elbow. Okay? I do not want this arm totally free where he can turn and strike me with it. So from there, I will release the hand, keeping the elbow, and I will come to this side and I will secure that wrist right away. See how I'm getting a hold of that? Now, once you have the wrist, let go of the elbow, bring your hand up on the inside, And there's that goose headlock. If I reinforce that with my right hand, a lot of pain. We're trying to take the palm of the hand and touch it to the forearm. Does not want to go from there. Okay, you see that? Nice and tight. Now, if my arm was not under his arm, you see, there's no pressure. But what I'm going to do is with my arm, I'm going to push it up into his armpit. So I'm pushing my bicep up into his armpit while I'm pulling down on the back of his hand. You see that? That's applying the goose headlock. Now there are some people where the goose headlock will touch. Okay? And that's what the next step is designed for. So you can see with the series of joint locks, each one is capable of stopping the attacker. But for whatever reason it doesn't, you make the smooth transition into the next lock. Okay? So let's take it from here with the number 10. There's our 10. We bring him up, 11. Behind the back hammer lock is 12. You see that reflex? We're going to go over here for 13. We fold this and bend this down. There's number 13, the goose headlock. Now for the 14, we're going to keep the goose headlock, but we're going to have an added bonus. I'm going to take my thumb, place it against the back of his forearm, take my 4 fingers, and get a hold of his thumb. You see that? And I'm going to squeeze these together. This is just like the brake or a clutch on the motorcycle. I'm going to squeeze these together. Yes, a lot of pain. Now I'm keeping the goose lock, okay? I'm keeping the 13 while I'm applying the 14. So he's feeling double pressure there. See, right there. We want to get him up on the toes. Now for the 15. 15 is designed that if your partner's thumb touches his forearm and he hasn't reacted, he hasn't felt that pain, we'll step back and pull this up. We're going to lock him in to the 15. Now I'll get you to hold that there. If you notice, the 15 is nothing more than the 10 just done on the other arm. This was the 10 over here. 15 is the exact same lock done on this side. Okay, so let's take it from the 10. There's 10. We'll bring him up.
Cut. 1 second. We'll just...
Okay, from the 10, the partner's sprawled out. We lock the index and thumb together. We bring him up. There's number 11. Rotate this behind to the hammer lock. Compress the 2 together. There's the 12. Sneak over to this side. There's our goose headlock, 13. Apply pressure with the thumb. Right there is 14. Now watch. I'm going to step back, release that hand grip. Remember we talked about the motorcycle action? We're going to release that hand grip and we're going to pull this out. You see how that comes out? Just unrolls right from there. Now we're going to lock in with the right hand, spin the left hand over, and now we're right back at our wrist lock. This is the number 15, identical to the number 10, just done on his right arm instead of his left arm. Okay, there you have it. The first 15 steps to a 60-step joint locking combination. Let's look at the first 15 again one more time. Mr. Tony? Okay, now that didn't come out right. Okay, let's look at some of the locks you're going to be seeing in the first 15. We can lock the shoulder. And how you lock the shoulder, you got to get the arm straight, like it's a post, and then you're pushing the post up. You're trying to take the shoulder and touch it to your partner's ear. That's how you lock up the shoulder. And how you lock the elbow. Once again, you want to get the arm straight. You want to put pressure under the elbow, and pressure pulling down at the wrist. What that's going to do is take your partner's body weight, lift it up in the air. It wants to come back down, but as long as you keep pressure at the elbow, the body weight will not come down. So when you're locking the elbow, try to get your opponent's wrist lower than the elbow. Pressure up from underneath, and there you go. Now you got the elbow locked, okay? And that can also be done simultaneously with the shoulder lock. So that's how you lock the shoulder and the elbow. Now locking the wrist. The wrist can be locked in 3 different ways. It can be locked forward, can be locked backwards, and can be locked to the side. The sideways is very painful. Some people may be able to lock it forward. Maybe they're that flexible they can take the palm of the hand and touch it to the forearm. As you can see, I cannot. Maybe they're so flexible they can take the back of the hand and touch it to the forearm. Once again, I'm not that flexible. Okay, and then there's the side. So that's how you're going to lock up the wrist. Now locking up the fingers. If you get all 4 fingers locked together and try to bend them back in a U shape towards your partner's stomach, that's how you're going to get the fingers locked. Now you want to keep pressure, you want to compress the 4 fingers together at the same time, and you're trying to turn them in a U, okay? Not a U in this direction, but a U backwards, this way. That's how you lock the fingers. Now the thumb can be locked by trying to touch it to the forearm. You see, if I apply pressure here, almost, okay? It's very painful. Done quickly is going to pop the thumb out of joint, okay? So that's how you lock the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, the fingers, and the thumb. Okay, now let me show you those same locks on Mr. Tony. Mr. Tony's help. Okay, let's take his arm. We're going to start with the shoulder lock. Now remember what I said. Straighten the arm like it's a post and try to touch the shoulder to the ear. Keep the arm straight. I'm going to push up, trying to touch the shoulder to the ear. Okay, the main function for this is to get your partner up onto the balls of the feet. That's going to cancel out his ability to kick. If he's flat, he can kick. If he's up on the bottom ball, it's very difficult to kick. Okay, so watch. Just holding the arm. Okay, let me touch a side kick right there. You see, you can side kick the knee. How about a twist kick? Yes, you see, twist kick from here. So it's a lot of kicks that he can do. But once we post that arm up, okay, now let's see. Yes, it's very hard. So that's the main objective with the shoulder lock. Get your partner up onto the ball of the feet, cannot kick. Okay, now the elbow. The elbow is very, very painful lock. Thing to remember, the elbow wants to bend this way. If I try to bend it this way, it does not want to bend. Okay, so holding the elbow stationary, pushing down on the wrist, there you go. Now the elbow's locked. We can do this in a number of ways, and you're going to see that throughout the course of 1 through 15. Okay, see the motion? Remember, the elbow and the shoulder can be done simultaneously. So as I apply the pressure, and he feels that on the elbow, now I'll try to touch the shoulder to the ear. So I have 2 locks in one. Okay, so watch. We turn the palm up. Okay, we're not trying to bend it this way. We're going to put pressure first on the elbow, and now push the shoulder towards the ear. We have 2 locks in one. So that's the shoulder and the elbow. Now, the wrist. Remember we said 3 ways that you can lock the wrist. You can try to touch the palm to the forearm. You can try to touch the back of the hand to the forearm, or sideways. Okay? Now in the 1 through 15, we're only going to deal with front and back. They're called wrist locks. We have what's called an inside wrist lock and an outside wrist lock. Now, how do you tell the difference between the two? Okay, Mr. Tony, hold his arms out. If I'm standing on the outside of his arms, I take my 2 thumbs and I'm going to place them on top of his hand, right on the back, and I'm going to put the tip of my thumbs right on his punching knuckles, on the 2 big punching knuckles. I'll wrap the 8 fingers underneath and get a hold of the meat of his hand. Now when I step away, I'll rotate this. Now with my thumbs, I'm pushing the back of his knuckles, pointing his fingers towards his eyes, and trying to touch his palm to his forearm. See what it did? See that motion that dipped him down? We're getting him down, we're putting all his weight on his legs. When we had him up, he couldn't kick. When we put him down and put all the weight on his legs, try to kick. See? Cannot kick. So either all the weight up or all the weight down. If it's centered in between, he's free to throw a number of kicks at you. Okay, so let's look at it again. This is outside wrist lock. I'm outside. I point my thumbs in the same direction as his fingers. Apply the pressure as I step away and rotate this. Okay? Can also be done on the outside of his left. Apply the pressure. That's an outside wrist lock. Now an inside wrist lock. See how his arms are extended? Now I'm on the inside. I'm going to place my hands in the same fashion. I'm pointing my thumbs, same direction as his fingers. Putting the tips of my thumbs right on his punchy knuckles, letting the 8 fingers grab the meat of his hand. Now as I step out and turn away, you see? There it is. That's the inside wrist lock. I'm trying to touch his palm to his forearm. It's very painful, okay? So one more time, quick review. Standing on the outside, apply your wrist lock. It's outside wrist lock. Standing on the inside, and applying that wrist lock is the inside wrist lock, okay? Now that's trying to touch the palm of the hand to the forearm. In this fashion and in this fashion. Now touching the back of the hand to the forearm. Okay? You see? I'm going to lock in just like a handshake. Okay? And that's actually how we're going to start the drill. I'm going to push the back of his hand towards the forearm. You notice? Right there. So that's got his wrist locked. Doesn't do anything with his elbow yet. You see? If I turn from here, if I put my hand on the back of the elbow and push, you see? I'm locking the wrist, but I'm not locking the elbow. Now I have the elbow locked, and I push the back, you see? Now I have the wrist and his elbow. If I push his shoulder towards his ear, now I have triple lock. Okay? The shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist. As far as the fingers, grab on tight, squeeze all the fingers together. You see that motion? Remember, we're trying to make those into the letter U. Now all 4 fingers are locked. So if we add 4 of these together, we have the quadruple lock. Now there's another way of locking the wrist. This is what we call a goose head lock. The arm of your partner is going to be vertical, the wrist is going to be bent, and it looks, see how it's similar? Resembles a goose head. So we call that a goose head lock. Now when we do the technique, we call this the shape of the crane. Okay? Because it's curved just like a crane's head. So we got the crane and the goose, very similar. So the way to tell the difference between the two, when you're doing the technique, then you have the shape of the crane. When you are applying this onto your opponent, now we call it a goose head lock. So that way you know the difference between the two and you don't get confused. Now, for this goose head lock, can't keep his wrist bent from here just by pushing pressure down. If I push down, all he has to do is bend his knees. See? And he doesn't feel pressure. Now, if I get him to bend his knees, and now I tell him to stand up. Go ahead and stand up. See? Go as hard as you can stand up. See? You cannot do it. By him trying to stand up, he's putting himself into the goose head lock. But who's going to do that? I'm going to show you how to keep him in the goose head lock. Your arm is going to be underneath of his arm. You see? You're going to put your bicep under his tricep. You're pushing up, just like you're flexing and making a muscle. At the same time, you put both of your hands on top, the back of his hand, you apply pressure down. Okay, you see that? So look, my bicep is under his tricep. I put my hands on top. Now, if we both go down, see, there's no pressure. But I'm going to push up with my bicep, and I'm going to pull down with the hand. This is called the goose head lock. Very painful, especially if your opponent is not flexible. See, watch again. There you go. That's called the goose head lock. Okay, so this is called the goose head lock. Now I'm going to switch over to the other side. I'm going to apply the same goose head lock onto my partner. See? Pushing up with my bicep against his tricep and pulling down onto his hand, shaping his arm and his wrist just like a goose head. You see that? Very painful. Now I'm going to show you how to lock the thumb. Okay? What you're going to do is take your thumb and place it on the back of your opponent's forearm. Take your 4 fingers and hook it onto his thumb. Now, squeezing pressure, I'm going to try to touch his thumb to his arm. Yes, it's very painful. Now, some people are that flexible, and I'll show you how to counter that if you squeeze and the thumb does touch the forearm. But we're going to do that a little bit later, okay? Now, when you're applying this thumb lock, okay, keep the goose head. Keep it. Don't just apply pressure here. As I'm pulling the thumb towards the forearm, I'm still pulling down on the back of his hand and pushing up with my bicep. Very painful. So everything's locked in here. Watch again. You see that? Very good. Okay, this tape is covering the first 15 in a series of 60 joint locking. Joint locking. Why did I say joint locking? Let's do that again. Joint locks. We can do it again. Okay, this tape is covering the first 15 of a series of 60-step joint locks. Now the first 6 are defenses against an aggressive handshake. Now I'm going to show you what I mean, aggressive handshake. If my partner sticks out the hand to shake, I'm a little weary of this guy. I don't know what his intentions are. I'll take the handshake, but I have to be aware of a couple things. I have to watch this hand. Once I have his hand in mind, I do not need to worry about this arm. I need to worry about this arm, I need to worry about both of his legs and his head. Okay, but once I have this in my hand, I know where this is at all times. Okay, so be a little hesitant at first, but don't be afraid to get a hold of it. So when he sticks out the handshake, you take it, but be aware of everything else. In order for him to hurt you with this hand, he'll have to let go and then strike. Okay, so you got it in your hand. Now if he wants to punch, probably he's going to step back and he's going to cock his fist back. Show me what I mean, right there. You see, he wants to create as much distance between his fist and my face. The reason for that, the longer the distance this fist has to travel, the greater the velocity it's going to have when it strikes, and that means a lot of impact. If he were to punch me from right here, okay, that's only 1 inch, okay, chances are that's not going to hurt, okay, but from pulled all the way back, yes, that's going to knock me out. So when we take the hand and he steps back, it shows us he's about to punch, that's when we have to move. Okay, now lock number 1, watch him. You're going to step in and place your knee behind your partner's knee. This way he can't kick. We're going to reinforce this handshake, so it's almost like a double-handed handshake. If you've never seen anyone shake hands with 2 hands, that's what you're doing. The right hand grabbed in first, the left hand's going to reinforce that. Okay, so we're behind his knee, and we've reinforced the lock. We're going to place our upper arm right underneath of his elbow. Okay, as he steps back and threatens us with that punch, we've reinforced that handshake. We put our knee behind his knee. We put our upper arm right under his elbow. You see? I want to get his wrist lower than his elbow. That means the elbow's locked. I want to try to touch his ear with his shoulder. That means the shoulder's locked. I'm going to bend his wrist back, try to touch the back of his hand to his forearm. That means the wrist is locked. I'm going to take his fingers and try to turn those into the letter U. Now the fingers are locked. So we have quadruple lock on number 1. Shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers. This is all done simultaneously. When he steps back to punch, we step in and lock him up. That's the number 1. That's going to take care of that punch. Now, if you really, really slam your arm into his elbow, it is possible to hyperextend and even break the elbow at that point. But the purpose of joint locking is to control the attacker without seriously hurting them. Okay, so I do not want to hurt him. For whatever reason, he wants to punch me, so I'm going to step in and control him. Maybe at this point, we can talk it over. Maybe not. Maybe I do have to strike. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Okay? So that's lock number 1. Now, lock number 2. It gives us the handshake. As he steps back and pulls back the punch, we're going to reinforce that handshake. We're going to lift this up. We're creating a doorway with his arm. If you slip your head quickly under the door, now you can position him for lock number 2. Okay, let's look at that again. You have your opponent locked. The arm is bent in a 90-degree angle. You're trying to get the elbow higher than the shoulder. At the same time, you're applying a spiraling pressure on the wrist. You're twisting that. You're trying to get the pinky side, the little finger, even with his ribs. Notice right here, it's the back of the hand. You try to turn that a little bit further. If you try to turn the thumb that way, the wrist wants to bend that way. But if we take the little finger and try to turn it towards the ribs, now the shoulder all the way down to the wrist and fingers are locked. It's just bent. Okay, for number 1, we had this straight. For number 2, we're going to have it bent. Okay, let's look at it. He gives us the handshake, so we take it. He steps back to punch. We reinforce, lift this up. Now as the punch is coming in, we slip out of the way. See, that way you're not hit. And we bend this. See, we're twisting that up. I'm squeezing his fingers at the same time. I want to get him up on his toes. Look down there. Can you see that? Up on the toes means he cannot kick. That's lock number 2. Okay, now let's look at lock number 3. Let's say we get a hold of the hand. He pulls back for the punch. We reinforce the double lock. But his punch is a little bit faster than we expected. We don't have time to open up. We see it coming in. What I want you to do is to block that with your arm. Okay? I'm using the bone of the forearm and I'm bringing that up like a shield. Just like a shield, I'm going to protect my face from that punch. I'm going to show you how I don't want you to do it. Once you reinforce that lock, when he throws that punch, don't let go of the lock and try to block that punch. Because if you can see, he's still free to kick. Okay? We want to twist him up in a way where he cannot kick us. So as he offers us the handshake, we take it. He steps back. We reinforce, but the punch is on the way. You see, I use my right forearm to deflect that punch. Now my arm has created a doorway. If you slip under that door, you see, now we have step number 3. We get him to turn a little bit. You can see this. I have the bent arm over my shoulder. I'm taking my hips and I'm pushing my hips into my partner. See that? So my weight is leaning forward. If I were to lean back, he has control. So I want to put my hips into his and lean slightly forward. Now I have him under control. This is lock number 3. Now, I'm going to show you how lock number 3 should be done in a realistic situation. When he gives me the handshake, I reinforce. Here comes the punch. You deflect the punch. As you walk through, number 3 is designed to take your partner down to the ground. Now he cannot strike. I can strike him if I want to. But we're doing a series of joint locks. So we don't want to end the fight here. We're going to have to make a smooth transition from number 3 to number 4. So we're going to stop halfway when the arms are across our shoulder. But keep in mind, if you're doing the number 3 lock by itself, this is where you want your partner to end up, okay? Let's look at that again. We'll do a little bit slower this time. He gives me the hand, so I take it. Reinforce 2 hands. Here comes the punch. Deflect the punch. Slip through the doorway. Make sure his wrist is lower than his elbow. And then we pull that like a lever. And that causes the partner to drop down. I took him completely off balance, okay? For number 3, you stop halfway, over the shoulder, put your hips into his hips, and just keep him locked in control. Don't take him to the floor. Let's look at number 4. Switch sides. Okay, he offers the hand. So we take the handshake. He steps back. There we go. Now, instead of reinforcing, we're going to step in and strike. You see that? By striking with the palm heel to the side of his face, I'm turning his eyes away from everything that's going on here. So he cannot see what's going on. Can you reach with your hand? Cannot do it. You see? So it's very important. When he pulls back, you step in and strike. So as he steps back to punch, see? You step in and strike your partner right there. That could be an eye spear. That could be a punch. I want you to use palm heel strike. It's a little bit safer that way. Pull the arm straight across your chest. Rotate the palm up. Now watch it. I'm going to circle this over and under. And if you can see it close up here, I'm going to lock on to my wrist. Okay, all 5 fingers together. You notice, put a little bit of pressure. I get him up on his toes. Now that's the same pressure from number 1. I have the same quadruple lock. His shoulder, his elbow, his wrist, and his fingers all locked for number 4. Okay, let's look at it again. As he steps back to punch, we step in and strike. Pull the arm straight so you can get underneath, reinforce this, and apply pressure. This is number 4. Now number 5 is just a slight variation from number 4. As he steps back to punch, we're going to pull this out. We're going to put our arm underneath. Now in the process of doing this, we could actually snap and break that elbow. What we're going to do is the shape of the crane. Remember, when we do the shape, it's called shape of the crane. When our partner has the lock done on them, that's called a goose head lock. Okay? So as he steps back to punch, we step in under the arm, shape of the crane. I'm going to put that behind his head. You see I'm putting pressure on his neck, and at the same time, I'm making sure his elbow is resting right on top of my elbow. This way I can push up and then pull down on the hand and we get that fulcrum action to lock up the elbow. So you see that? I'm under and behind and pushing down. If I lift the wrist up, even with the shoulder, there's no pressure. Well, watch what happens when I push this down. Yes, that's where you're going to get the pain. Right from there. You see that? This is lock number 5. Okay? Now, for lock number 6. Number 6 is the last of the handshake locks. Okay? He offers the hand. We take it. He steps back to punch. We're going to swing this out. And instead of putting our arm underneath of there, we're going to put our shoulder underneath of there. The shoulder is right up into his armpit. Once I'm at that position, if I start to stand up, that's the same motion of trying to get his shoulder to touch his ear. So we're locking the shoulder. Okay, this is number 6. He steps back. So we step in and put this in position. You're going to take the left hand, wrap over top, and pull down. There you go. A lot of pressure on number 6. And if you torque his wrist and you turn his fingers, you're going to get that same quadruple lock. Okay, so let's look at him again. Here's lock number 1. He steps back for the punch, so we step in. Lock number 1. Okay, lock number 2. He steps back, we swing out, go underneath. Look at that. Lock number 2. Okay, let's look at lock number 3. Reinforce. Here comes a punch. Shield with your own arm. Step through. Lock number 3. Okay, handshake lock number 4. When he pulls back, we step in and strike. Wrap this up. Lock number 4. Number 5, we use the shape of the crane. He steps back, crane behind the neck. There's lock number 5. Number 6, our shoulder is going to replace our arm under his elbow. As he steps back, there's lock number 6. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tony. Okay, now the first 6 can be done individually. That means if he steps back, I can step in and lock him up for number 1, and then we can let go. He can put the hand out, and then we can do number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, and 6. But for the series, the joint lock series, the first 6 are going to be done without ever losing contact of that handshake. Keep that in mind. Okay, there you have it. The first 15 of the 60-step lock. I hope you enjoyed learning them. I sure did learn. I sure did enjoy it. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, there you have it. It's the first 15 locks of the series of 60. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope to see you back here for the next tape where we're going to cover number 16 to number 30. Thank you.